I never thought I'd be standing at the edge of my own life, watching it unravel before my eyes. But here I was, clutching my suitcase in one hand and the remnants of my dignity in the other, as I prepared to leave the house I once called home. The words still echoed in my mind, cold and cutting. "We need you to leave. There's no place for you here anymore." It had been a long time coming, I suppose. The tension had been simmering for months, if not years. My name is Emma, and I'm 34 years old. I've spent most of my adult life working in marketing, climbing the corporate ladder one grueling step at a time. I was good at my job, or at least I thought so. My coworkers respected me, my boss trusted me, and my clients knew they could count on me. But none of that seemed to matter when I walked through the door of my home each evening. Home. The word used to mean something comforting, something safe. But over time, it had become synonymous with dread. The house belonged to my in-laws, where I lived with my husband Tom and his parents. We had moved in shortly after our wedding, a decision made more out of convenience than anything else. The house was spacious, and with both of us working long hours, it made sense to live close to family, where we could share the responsibilities of caring for Tom's aging parents. But what started as a practical arrangement quickly turned into a nightmare. Tom's parents, especially his mother, had very clear ideas about what a good wife should be. "A woman's place is in the home," she would say, usually while watching me struggle to juggle work and household chores. "And if you can't even keep the house clean, what good are you?" I would bite my tongue and force a smile, too tired to argue after a long day at the office. Tom tried to defend me, but his mother was relentless. "Emma works hard," he would say, but it never seemed to matter. To her, I was just a poor excuse for a wife, too focused on my career to care properly for her son or their home. The criticisms were constant, like a slow drip of water wearing away at my resolve. "You've left dishes in the sink again, Emma," she'd say with a sigh, as if I were a child who needed scolding. "And the laundry is piling up. Honestly, what do you do all day?" What I did all day was work, but that didn't seem to count for much in her eyes. Tom and I had talked about moving out, finding a place of our own, but every time we brought it up, his parents would find a reason to keep us there. "We're getting older," his mother would say. "We need you close by in case something happens." And so, we stayed, bound by guilt and obligation. But things took a turn for the worse when Tom's younger brother Jake returned home after a failed business venture. He was broke, having lost everything in a risky investment, and he had nowhere else to go. His return added another layer of tension to an already strained household. Jake was bitter, angry at the world for his failures, and he took it out on everyone around him. He especially seemed to enjoy picking fights with me, mocking my career and my inability to meet his mother's impossible standards. "Why don't you just quit your job, Emma?" he'd sneer. "It's not like you're any good at it. Maybe then you'd have time to actually be a decent wife." His words stung, but I refused to let him see how much they hurt. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to let someone like Jake tear me down. But the stress was wearing me thin. I found myself staying later at the office, not because I needed to, but because I dreaded going home. The office was my sanctuary, the one place where I felt competent and respected. Then, one night, everything came crashing down. It was a Friday, and I had just finished a particularly grueling week at work. I was exhausted, both mentally and physically, and all I wanted was to go home, have a quiet dinner with Tom, and maybe watch a movie before bed. But as soon as I walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. The house was eerily quiet, except for the low murmur of voices coming from the living room. I set my keys down and made my way toward the sound, my heart pounding in my chest. As I rounded the corner, I saw them. Tom, his parents, and Jake, all sitting together, their faces grim. "Emma," Tom's mother said, her voice cold and emotionless. "We need to talk." I knew what was coming before she even said it. I could see it in their eyes, in the way they refused to meet my gaze. Jake needs his old room back, she continued. You'll have to leave. The room spun around me as the words sank in. Leave? Where would I go? This was my home too, wasn't it? But as I looked at their faces, I realized that it never had been. I was just a guest, a temporary fixture in their lives, and now that they no longer had any use for me, I was being discarded. Tom tried to protest, but his mother silenced him with a glare. This isn't up for discussion, she said firmly. Jake needs the space, and we can't have you taking up a room when you don't contribute to the household. I wanted to scream, to tell them that I did contribute, that I paid for groceries, utilities, even some of the household repairs. But I knew it would be pointless. They had made up their minds, and nothing I said would change that. So I did the only thing I could do. I packed my bags. As I stood in the doorway of the room that had once been mine, I took one last look around. This wasn't how I had imagined my life turning out. I had always thought that if I worked hard, if I was kind and respectful, things would work out. But life, it seemed, had other plans. With a heavy heart, I closed the door behind me and walked out into the night. I didn't know where I was going, but anywhere was better than staying in that house. I found a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. The space was quiet, free of the constant criticisms and judgment that had filled my days for so long. It was a new beginning, and I was determined to make the most of it. But the past has a way of creeping back into your life, no matter how far you try to run from it. A few weeks after I moved out, I received a call from Tom. Emma, he said, his voice strained. Can we meet? There's something I need to talk to you about. We met at a small cafe near my apartment, the kind of place we used to go to when we were first dating. It felt surreal, sitting across from him like we were strangers, when not long ago, we had shared everything. I'm sorry, Tom began, his eyes filled with regret. I should have stood up for you. I should have done more. But my family, they've always had this hold over me, and I didn't know how to break free. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. The pain was still too fresh, the wounds too raw. I've moved out, he continued, surprising me. I couldn't stay there after what they did to you. I've been staying with a friend, but I've found a place of my own. I couldn't live with myself if I stayed. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been broken. But as much as I wanted to believe that, there was a part of me that was still wary, still hurt. I don't know if we can fix this, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. So much has happened, and I don't know if I can go back to the way things were. Tom reached across the table and took my hand, his grip firm and reassuring. We don't have to go back, he said. We can start over, on our own terms. No more family interference, no more living under someone else's roof. Just you and me. His words were everything I had wanted to hear, but I was still scared. Could we really start over? Could we leave the past behind and build something new? I didn't have the answers, but I knew that I wanted to try. Over the next few months, Tom and I worked to rebuild our relationship. It wasn't easy. There were still moments of doubt, still times when the hurt from the past threatened to overwhelm us. But we were determined to make it work. We found a small house in a quiet neighborhood, a place where we could finally build a life of our own. It wasn't grand or luxurious, but it was ours, and that was all that mattered. We spent our weekends painting the walls, picking out furniture, and slowly but surely turning the house into a home. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace, a sense that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon when Tom's mother showed up on our doorstep, her face drawn and pale. I hadn't seen her since the day I left, and the sight of her standing there, soaked to the bone, sent a jolt of fear through me. Emma, she said, her voice trembling. I need your help. My first instinct was to shut the door, to tell her to leave and never come back. But something in her eyes stopped me. There was no malice, no anger, just a deep, abiding sadness. What's wrong? I asked, my voice hesitant. She hesitated, as if unsure how to begin. Jake's in trouble, she finally said, her voice cracking. He's lost everything. He made some bad decisions, and now he's in debt. The house is at risk, and we don't know what to do. I felt a pang of sympathy, despite everything that had happened. Jake had always been reckless, always chasing after the next big thing without thinking of the consequences. But this was different. What do you want from me? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Please, she begged, tears streaming down her face. We need your help. You're the only one who can save us. I looked at Tom, who had been standing silently beside me, and saw the conflict in his eyes. This was his family, the people who had raised him, Farzrania, but they were also the ones who had nearly destroyed our marriage. How could we possibly help them after everything they had done? I don't know if we can, I said slowly, choosing my words carefully. We've built a new life, one that doesn't involve the chaos and dysfunction of the past. I'm not sure we're willing to risk that. Tom's mother nodded, her shoulders slumping in defeat. I understand, she whispered, turning to leave. But as she walked away, I felt a tug at my heart. Could I really turn my back on them, knowing what they were going through? Could I live with myself if I didn't at least try to help? Wait, I called out, my voice cutting through the rain. Come inside. Let's talk. Tom looked at me in surprise, but he didn't protest. Together, we led his mother into the warmth of our home, offering her a towel and a cup of tea. As she sat at our kitchen table, I saw the years of strain etched into her face, the weight of too many bad decisions pressing down on her. We'll help you, I said finally, the words surprising even myself. But things have to be different this time. No more secrets, no more lies. We'll work together, as a family. For the first time in a long time, Tom's mother smiled, a small, tentative smile that held a glimmer of hope. Thank you, she said, her voice filled with gratitude. It wasn't going to be easy. I knew that. But for the first time, I felt like we were on the right path, that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to heal the wounds of the past and build something better for the future. As the rain continued to fall outside, I looked around at the home Tom and I had created, at the life we had built together, and I knew that no matter what came next, we would face it together. We had survived the shadows of the past, and now it was time to step into the light.